I've been doing this for 8 years, working to get a collective bargaining bill passed so we could form a union. And I'm not even doing it for me anymore. 8 years ago, yeah, I was.
Right.
But now I'm kind of looking at the clock and the calendar, and I'm thinking I'm doing it for my colleagues who are 40.
Sure. You must have like strong beliefs to like dedicate that much time and effort into it, would you say?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. And what do you think, if you could like summarize what your belief about either you can say it any way you want, what a union would do for Howard Community College or what they do in general, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, basically, it would give us negotiating rights at the table with the administration, which we don't have now, collectively. So I could talk to my boss one-on-one and perhaps ask for a favor, but we can't do that together. Together, we would have the right to negotiate our contracts, our job security, working conditions, which are students' learning conditions, and we are really at the mercy of the administration with no rights at this point.
When you say we could, like, bargain together, is it's better somehow to do that than the individual?
Of course.
Okay.
Because it could be favoritism. I like you, I'm your boss, I like you, but I don't like the way you teach or something. I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen that you're not treated equally. And this is a way of having everybody treated equally with a contract. It also means that together the professors can talk about what they would like to negotiate. So we pick the 5 most important things that we all agree on.
Okay.
Yes, we work with a union, but that's because the union has expertise in negotiating contracts. The union is us. The union would be us.
And if there was a union at Howard Community College and we were making a contract together, would you say that would that's going to lead to a different outcome than what it is currently? Do you think there's currently unfair treatment, or is it unequal?
So we can talk about job security. We can talk about wanting maybe a year-long contract, so we know that we have work for the whole year. We can talk about benefits, which we have none.
Gotcha.
We can talk about eventually salary increases. I can talk about Montgomery College, which is a community college in Maryland that has had a union for almost 10 years, and they have they get paid for extra pay for what do you call it? Teaching preparation. I'm forgetting what the word is, but
no problem.
Job training. Their salaries have gone up. They do have yearly contracts. All of those things have been worked into their contract with the administration, and the administration works with the faculty. It's like the faculty now is in partnership with the administration instead of feeling left out. And
you were talking about the annual contract, so you're referring to adjunct, like part-time workers, right? So is there at Montgomery College might be a good contrast to...
Yeah, and I don't know everything.
Sure.
You know, on paper I don't have it, but I've known for years that once they got a union, for example, the reason I actually called Montgomery College 8 years ago because I was so fed up. What happened to me and to many of my other adjuncts in the department was we found out that we would have a salary docked if we called in sick. This is before the bill that started. Now we accrue a sick leave. That was before that bill, which SEIU supported. but was not part of the collective bargaining bill. And previous to that, we were not docked. So the incentive now is to go to work sick.
Right.
So that was, and then I found out that different departments at the college were not, some of them were doing that, some of them weren't. So it wasn't equal.
I see. And what would the current method be if you wanted to try and rectify that problem, for example?
Well, we did rectify it in a way, because we got another bill passed, which is the I don't remember the title of the bill, but basically you accrue a certain amount of sick leave days per year, and it transfers over. Like, not all of it. You can't, and it's not like full time. I don't know what full time is like, but now if I call in sick, I've accrued enough time that I won't be docked my salary.
Got it.
So that was another bill that we worked on, which is separate from the collective bargaining bill.
Okay. So it sounds like the path to rectifying inequalities right now for part-time is legislation. Yeah.
In Maryland, higher education was left out of the collective bargaining bill for public employees. I don't know the history of that. It seems strange that we were left out,
right?
But we were. What happened at Montgomery College is they went through the county.
Okay.
And going county by county now doesn't seem fair. So this collective bargaining bill, which passed, is for all the community colleges.
Right.
In Maryland.
This collective bargaining bill, this allows for
it allows for faculty to vote for a union if they want to.
Right.
So even though we have collective bargaining, it doesn't mean that the faculty at Howard Community College will vote for a union, or they will. We don't know.
So this is an interesting question of, should they vote for a union?
It would benefit them. That's why I contact other adjuncts, encouraging them to support a union.
So that idea of that
it gives us power together. I mean, I feel that way about all unions, not just our union. That like the workers at Amazon, if they voted for a union, they can negotiate things like bathroom breaks.
Right.
Now they can't. Why? Now they were intimidated. Amazon intimidated those workers, and that's why they didn't vote for the union. Intimidation can scare people. They can get afraid that they'll lose their job.
What do you think the primary reason that you believe this to be true, that unions are generally good for workers?
Just by observing. I mean, this country we had a strong labor union base for years. It's dwindled a lot, but the middle class became the middle class because of unions.
So you think
job,
historically,
security, benefits, and pay.
And when you're talking about became the middle class, what kind of time period are you thinking of here?
So the 50s probably were great. The 60s were probably great. I think unionization started to dwindle in the 70s and on. The idea that your boss or the company's boss is going to make sure that you have a living wage or you're going to be able to retire is a nice thought. And it might be happening at that company or that factory until they get a new boss. You have the power with the union to make sure that nothing is eroded from your benefits. You have the power with the union to negotiate better working conditions. And again, working conditions are our students' learning conditions. If you have an adjunct who has to race away to go get another teaching job at another school, that teacher's not giving that student the extra time that you can give because you're full-time.
Right, right. And how confident are you that conditions would improve if there was a union?
So basically, if you have a union, the administration has to negotiate with the faculty. There's no negotiations now. So there'll be compromise. There'll be compromise on the administration's part. There'll be compromise on our part. But we will have a contract that's ratified and accepted by the employees.
And right now, you get some sort of contract, right?
Well, yeah, but we have never negotiated our salary.
Right.
The only reason our salaries have even gone up a little bit is because of the talk about unionization for the past 8 years at Howard.
And what would you say is the most common arguments, or maybe the strongest arguments against unions that you've heard?
Well, I don't hear it from faculty. I've certainly heard it from the administration, and they argue during the legislation where I testified that, well, there's no money, there's no extra money, and they argue that the state is not doing their part in giving money to the colleges, which they had promised. So we also, last year, 2020, we did not introduce a collective bargaining bill at the state. Instead, we supported full funding of community colleges by the state, which was passed. So, and that promise hadn't happened for years. I mean, it was an agreement that was supposed to happen. The money that the community college gets is from the state. They must get some from the federal government, and then the county. The state wasn't doing their part. So that was their biggest argument, that the state is not doing their part, therefore we can't risk negotiating terms and conditions for the faculty. I do know that Howard Community College 2 years ago thought the bill was going to pass, and they already opened an office to negotiate with the union. It didn't happen. But we all thought it was going to pass 2 years ago, and it didn't. It got blocked.
What do you think is the expense that they're concerned about?
They're concerned about salaries.
Okay.
But Montgomery College has proved that even increase in salaries, if that happens, does not become a budget issue. They find the money. They have the money. And tuition does not go up. In fact, tuition went down at Montgomery College, from what I've been told.
How do you think at Montgomery College, you think they negotiated with the union, but did the salaries go up there?
They've gone up quite a bit.
So they've gone up quite a bit.
Over the last 10 years.
But tuition hasn't gone up.
I'm sure it's gone up, but not any more than ours has.
And so how do you think that happened?
I don't know.
Okay.
But, budget people know how to work budgets.
Right.
We don't. The whole idea of, this union is not just for adjuncts. It's for full-time faculty and staff. So whatever issues the full-time faculty may have, they are able to bring that to the table too. And I do know that there are issues.
And
like the whole restructuring is an issue.
So this idea of, maybe if we look at it more generally from the looking at unions, when they bargain collectively, you said they have more power to...
Well, we don't bargain at all individually. Behind closed doors, I could go to the dean and say, could you help me with this? And maybe they would. But that's not... I'm not going to get more money, and or I'm not going to get any better benefits alone. We do this together. It's a group effort. We have the power to make our working conditions better if we have a union.
Got it. And
we can't do it alone, because it would be probably wrong for them to do something for you and not for your colleague.
Right.
Or if you found out, you'd be a little upset.
Yeah, I could see like
Like, for example, if you were full time, and if you did something extra for the college, you might get release time, so you don't teach the 4 courses or 5 courses you have to teach. And that was approved for you, but the person over in another department didn't happen. So that's unequal.
Yeah, and you think that wouldn't happen as often under...
I don't know if it's even happening, but if you are aware of what you're negotiating and how you can improve it for everybody, then yeah. I mean, I do believe that we need equality in negotiating for everybody.
Do you think that it would be in the college's best interest to have that equality as well? Do you think so?
Sure.
What do you think?
Well, I think that first of all, you bring, especially for the adjuncts, they become more of a part of the college. They are invested in the college. It's very hard to be invested in the college when you're teaching at 4 different colleges.
Right.
I mean, even if I was only teaching at 2.
Yeah.
And I'm not alone. I mean, I can name everybody in my department that's teaching at more than one college. I mean, I have ideas. I would like to see a lecturer status, which we don't have. Now, I don't even know if that would be part of negotiations, but I can see a way of structuring the livelihoods of everybody in a different way. In the past, there weren't that many adjuncts. When I went to college, what was an adjunct? There might have been a visiting scholar, and they called them an adjunct.
Were you at a community college or 4-year?
4-year.
Okay. Do you think that's different between...
No, because I know people who teach at private schools that are adjuncts.
Got it.
Now, I don't know every place.
Sure. But it seems
because I've been working at the community college level at this point, although I would like to see another bill passed for the 4-year state schools. We're talking public employees.
Yeah.
So, for example, MICA, which is a private 4-year school in Baltimore, has a union with SEIU. They didn't have to get the collective bargaining bill passed because they're private. So there's a number of schools that are private that have already unionized.
I see.
But they didn't have to jump through this legislative hoop.
And in general, you mentioned public employees as opposed to like private.
Yeah.
Do you think that, you mentioned Amazon before, so do you feel like all employees should be unionized regardless of public or private, or?
If they want to.
Yeah,
it's
gotcha.
a vote.
Right.
I mean, if the majority vote yes, then sure.
So
yes.
How do we know that that would make for better working conditions?
Again,
yeah.
You come together as, the employees come together. What do you want improved? What do you need improved? What are your arguments that you're not happy about? What can we do to write this into the contract to make your working conditions better?
Right.
So there may be employees at Howard Community College that want some outlandish thing. If the majority of us think, we're not going to write that into the contract, we're not writing it into the contract. So it's all negotiations.
Yeah, what would prevent the employees from saying, we want some ridiculous amount of thing, like everybody gets a boat or something like this? What would? So
I think there'll be union reps. I don't know how this works, but not everybody, you have representatives on campus who is an employee who I think eventually makes the decision what's going into the contract. I mean, and SEIU helps write the contract too. So no, you're not going to get a vote. But you might get a bonus that buys you a boat.
Right.
Like you got that bonus. Well, we haven't got it yet, but speaking of which, that's what we petitioned for. A bonus for the work we did during COVID that was extra work and we weren't compensated for.
Right. And so that's an example of where you managed to get a bonus without
True.
having a union, right?
True. That's true.
So if
But
there,
if we weren't organized, we were the ones who brought this to the administration. By the way, did you know that Prince George's Community College just gave their adjuncts and full-time bonuses? Oh no, we're not aware of that. Well, if we hadn't brought it up in a public setting, we still would not have gotten a bonus. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. And coming back to the general idea of unions and how we're
organized already. That's the point. No,
got it.
We can be a union as we are, but without collective bargaining, we have no right to negotiation with the administration. So that's why the collective bargaining bill was so important to be passed. Then, yes, we've made a little bit strides, but we're still not negotiating with the administration. This was an embarrassing moment for them, in my opinion. You're not giving bonuses for all the work we did, but other colleges are? Oh.
Right. So there's an incentive there for them to match
they match.
What the other
Actually,
colleges
they
do.
gave a little bit more.
Okay. Right.
Although not every employee is going to get that money, I just realized.
So,
unfortunately.
Who is that? Because of the way they're matching what other colleges are doing?
No, it's the way they. Have you read something about if you were working the spring of 2020?
Okay.
You know, they've worded it in such that it almost seems, and I need to read. You might want to read it too. It seems like COVID hit in the spring of 2020, and I'm not sure they're matching. If you weren't working then. I don't understand it, but I got an email from one non-credit adjunct, and she said she doesn't qualify because she wasn't working this period of time, even though she was working when COVID hit.
Right.
So she had to go from face-to-face to online, so she had to redevelop her course. But apparently the way it's written, she's not qualified for the bonus, even though she did a lot of legwork there.
Right, right.
So we need to go back and I suggest we negotiate more on that.
Yeah. And
I gotta get the wording right.
Sure. And so these negotiations that ostensibly improve the conditions, and if there was another college that their faculty didn't have a union, we'll say, but they're...
So far, every community college has been organizing, like we have at Howard.
Okay.
So the reason Prince George's Community College were given a bonus was because they have been organizing also, and they have a petition also.
Right.
So this is pre-union, yes, but this is us working as a union, and it's a good example to the faculty to see what more we could do if we actually formed a union.
I see. So it's like you believe that we're seeing the effect of working together and communicating, and that causes these changes to happen. So can you think of something you would learn tomorrow that might make you even more strongly convinced that unions would be effective at?
I don't really have to wait till tomorrow. I just go back and look at Montgomery College. I mean, I don't have my list in front of me of all the benefits that they have negotiated over the last 10 years, but I know they exist. I just can't list them.
Right.
So I don't need to wait till tomorrow. I've been doing this for 8 years, working to get a collective bargaining bill passed so we could form a union. And I'm not even doing it for me anymore. 8 years ago, I was.
Right.
But now I'm kind of looking at the clock and the calendar, and I'm thinking I'm doing it for my colleagues who are 40.
Sure.
Who they went to get their MFA or their PhDs. They wanted to teach in college. They've been doing it thinking that they were going to get a full-time job, and they haven't. They've gone down that road halfway. Now it's time for them to have some power because they don't have an alternative.
Mm-hmm.
The first year that I testified at the House of Representatives in Annapolis, one of the delegates came up to me afterwards. He said, well, why don't you just get another job?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, and like teaching's what I do. So I thought that's an interesting way of approaching a collective bargaining bill. Just go away.
Yeah. And what would you say for if there was some other group of workers that were organizing and trying to achieve these better conditions, and let's say they don't succeed at getting improvements?
So when you have a union that is backed by collective bargaining, which public employees in this state needed that bill passed, you don't ratify a contract until both sides agree on the conditions. Mm-hmm. So it is a back and forth, but the administration is, they have to negotiate. And negotiation means we are going to come to an agreement about your working conditions, benefits, whatever else the faculty wants to put into that negotiation. It's a two-way street. We hit another recession, there's no money. Montgomery College has, in their contract, has said we won't get our raise this year, whatever year that was. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a back and forth, but at least that we're all at the table negotiating. We are not at the table.
Right. So that is the big difference for having this equality and having these improvements is because you have a voice at the table.
Mm-hmm. You're equal. You have power. Mm-hmm. We have no power.
What could you find out that might decrease your confidence that unions, or what could you see? What sort of evidence would you look to find to see that it is not as effective as you thought? That might lower your confidence in unions being effective.
So I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, at this point in time, I can't think of anything. Now, I suppose, I don't know. I mean, I've heard stories in the past, many, many, many years ago, about unions being corrupt somehow, but that's not here. Not at our college. That's not going to happen. I mean, I don't even know how that works. But, and I think that's a myth that people still have. When unions were, it could have started during the Ronald Reagan administration or earlier. They were talked down, badmouthed somehow. Well, he broke, what was it, the air traffic controller union. I don't know if you remember that story.
No, I don't know anything about that.
I don't know the whole story either, but
it was a union that was problematic for some reason and got broken up.
They weren't problematic, but I have to do my history. I have to read my history, but there's a reason why fewer and fewer employees in this country are unionized. I hope that trend changes.
What do you think that reason is?
Union busting. Some of the laws have been changed, so it's harder to form a union. And a lot of people don't come from union families anymore, so there's no history of union. People don't understand. My father was in a union, but I can meet a lot of people who their family, their fathers, their parents weren't unionized.
Right.
So you kind of lose that. What did that union do for your family? Well, we weren't in a union.
Are there any unions today, do you think, that should not be unionized or have too much power or anything like that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
It's interesting. I do believe that some of the factory workers from the north, the factories moved to the south because they weren't unionized and they could get cheaper employees. And then, of course, they moved overseas, so nobody had a job. But in public employees, I mean, you can't take us and move Howard Community College to a state that doesn't, allow unions. We're here.
Right. And I'm wondering if, when you think about the effect that it would have economically, because that was a big issue, right? You said the main reason that people were against unions, or that.
So we are not even going to talk about increase in salaries until we're out of whatever financial situation COVID created.
Right.
So we'll be negotiating other benefits, working conditions, whatever the faculty want to negotiate.
Got it.
Because right now, it does look like the economy is coming back faster than everybody thought, but you don't really know yet how that's working. So it's not all about money.
Yeah.
Job security. If, for example, you thought you had a class this summer and you prepared for the class to teach this summer, and at the last minute you were told, I'm sorry, we have to give this class to somebody else because he doesn't have or she doesn't have enough courses to teach. You're not only making less money that you thought you were going to make, but you prepared for that class and you're not even paid for that preparation.
Right.
So how do you negotiate that? What would you do to make that work for the adjunct, or for even the full-time person who thought these are the things that I don't know how you would negotiate, but there's a way of moving things around so you're not pulling the rug out of somebody's financially at the very last minute.
It sounds like that would be a financial factor for the college, right? Because they're pulling that out and
sure,
not paying
but there's
them,
a way
right?
of making it work that you're not ruining somebody's life.
I see.
Also, if an adjunct faculty is teaching in more than one school, there's only so many days in a week. So I said yes to Howard. I've had to say no to Prince George's because the classes are on the same day. I lose at the last minute. I've lost my teaching job at Howard, but the job at PG went to somebody else. These are the things that are so unstable that there's a way of negotiating so that they become more stable. And no, you're not talking about money. The money, there's a way of working that out that everything's equal.
Okay. And
I mean, the class is still being taught. It's just not being taught by the person who thought they were going to teach it. That's just one example.
Sure.
That's one example.
And do you think some of these factors might already be enacted, like when an administration is trying to figure out how to put out classes, and what prevents them from completely just railroading the faculty or
Nothing, really.
Okay.
But even if the class was pulled from that faculty member, they should at least be compensated for the hours or days they spent preparing the class. So that could be negotiated.
Right.
I mean, you're working for nothing, basically, if you're preparing for a class that you then don't teach. That's one example of negotiating that's not negotiating for highest salary.
Yeah. I'm thinking back to the example of the Amazon employees.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
go ahead.
Okay.
I mean, they're not professors. I'm not trying to compare the two as what the benefits would be.
Sure.
I'm just comparing the fact that they were intimidated. They didn't vote for a union. Some of the things that I've been told about the Amazon workers is things like bathroom breaks.
Right.
Things like working so hard and so fast that they become injured.
Mm-hmm.
Those are things that can be negotiated in a contract.
Right.
Now, Amazon's looking pretty right now. They're talking about everybody gets $15 an hour, and that means, employees down the street are going to get $15 an hour also to keep up with Amazon. But that's not helping them with their bathroom break, et cetera, et cetera. I only brought them up because they're in the news now. There was,
sure.
I forget what state, but they had a union vote, and they didn't vote for a union.
Mm-hmm.
But they also were intimidated.
I'm wondering what the world would look like. How would the world look different if it wasn't true that unions made for better conditions for employees? How do you think the world could be different if your belief in unions was false? Like, how would you recognize it?
Well, you're talking about a different world.
Yes.
Yeah, you're talking
absolutely.
more like
parallel universe.
Sure, maybe the Soviet Union.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, there was a socialized. I don't know if they were unionized. Everybody had a job. They did shoddy work. I mean, apparently, the shoes fall apart if you bought a shoe made in Russia, the
right.
Soviet Union. But we're a democracy, so that. I don't even know if that's a comparison.
Yeah.
I think the mistake here is thinking that a union is something other than the employees. If we negotiate as a union with SEIU as the union that we are represented by, we are SEIU.
Mm-hmm.
The employees are the union.
Right.
So if for some reason you at Howard Community College, because the full-time faculty can also form a union, are not happy with the negotiations, are not happy with the representatives who are negotiating for your benefits, you vote them out.
Mm-hmm.
You become the representative,
right?
The union rep on campus. But it's you. It's not you are the employee. So everybody has an eye on what's going on. So if we're not negotiating a contract that we accept, then we have to go back to the table and write a contract that the employees will accept.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the power. It's us. It's us.
Right.
Now, will some people still not be happy? For sure. I mean, there's always somebody who's not happy. But they're going to be more happy than they are now.
Mm-hmm.
Because at least they will have had a say together.
So if there was another employee, we'll say Sally, teaching part-time, and after this union's formed, with collective bargaining added in there, and they make an agreement, and Sally's been working here for a decade, and she sees the changes and says, this is actually worse. I have worse working conditions now.
I'm not sure what those would be. I mean, what would Sally not want in a contract? Would she not want an office that she can meet with her students in private? Would she not want that? Would that be worse? Would she not want to be paid for extra, like, for example, we have been required to go to faculty meetings, not paid
Right.
for. Would she rather not be paid to go to those faculty meetings, or would she like to have extra salary for that, extra benefit?
I'm imagining if she were saying that she has lost some benefits.
Yeah, but I'm
as a
just trying to
result of
imagine what could
What-
be lost. What
I
does
see.
she have now that she would have lost?
Right.
I mean, I don't know what
yeah.
possibly it could be. Well, maybe Sally had something going with the dean that she was getting extra something that no one else knew about, so that
Right.
could be a problem. But
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know Sally,
Yeah, sure.
but
Okay.
and so maybe that is a possibility that somebody at the college is getting benefits that no one else really is getting because they're good friends with the dean.
Mm. Right.
You know, no, I can see somebody being disgruntled about that,
Okay. So, and
but
let's.
that doesn't quite seem fair
Right.
to everybody else.
Yeah. So if there were many people that felt that way.
Well, if many people felt that way, we wouldn't have a union
Right.
because so many of those people didn't vote for the union. Their voices were heard over the people who did vote for the union.
Right.
So that's where it's very democratic. If there's a lot of Sallys who are really happy with their working conditions and everything else that they're getting from the college, they're not going to vote for a union. We don't get a union.
Right.
I haven't met them, but on occasion I might meet a Sally.
Right. And would that change your mind? Would that shift your confidence at all in how effective unions are, or
Well,
not?
no, what it would do, it would just show me that there was a lot of faculty at Howard Community College who were happy with their conditions and didn't want to form a union.
Right.
And that wouldn't shake my confidence in what's happening at Montgomery College or any of the other colleges that have formed unions. It would just mean that, unbeknownst to me, the faculty at Howard Community College were quite happy with everything and didn't feel the need to come together and work together as a unit
Right.
with negotiation power at the table with the administration. So they would have spoken. But I am confident that that's not going to happen. That if there is a Sally, there are many more Joans.
Right. Cool. Well, I think that's about all the questions I have. I really enjoy the conversation. Is there any questions that you wanted me to ask about, or anything that else you wanted to add or ask me questions?
Well, what do you feel like as a full-time employee, faculty at Howard Community College? Are you happy with the results that we're getting from the faculty forum?
Yeah, so the faculty forum, we didn't talk about faculty forum, but that would be sort of like a collective in a way.
It is, but they
right?
have no power.
Right.
The administration does not have to negotiate with them. Interesting enough, when the administration put forward their restructuring of the college, is that what they called it?
Yes, yeah.
Faculty forum found out, and they got the administration to pause. Now, that was a pause. That
Right.
wasn't, we're going to negotiate with you and come to an understanding about how this can work better for you, the faculty who are actually teaching
Yeah.
the students, not the administration. What I found interesting is if the administration had worked that out behind closed doors without telling anybody, and then delivering it to everybody saying, this is done, we would have had no say in it. By leaking it or telling beforehand, they did give faculty forum some say, but it's just a pause. I am not confident that much is going to change from what their vision was.
Do you think if there had been a union that would not have happened?
I don't know. I
Okay.
don't know the answer to that. I don't know how much a union can negotiate when it comes to that kind of structuring. But it's possible.
Yeah.
It's happened. I mean, I teach at the University of Maryland Global Campus, and they did just that. They restructured, but they didn't tell anybody. So one day you came to work and you found out that you didn't have a job anymore. One day you came to work, somebody else came to work and realized you all have to reapply for the job you have.
Right.
Some of the other faculty there found out, some of the other administration found out they lost their position, but they could apply for another position. Apply.
Yeah.
And that was all done in secret. And there is no union there.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I guess to come back to your question for me, do I think, so the main thing we're exploring here is, do labor unions make for better conditions? And I think I would agree that I think I've seen evidence of that. But I'm open to being wrong. Like, I've heard so much about people saying they're bad, and but I haven't.
You haven't
heard
heard
the
that
reasons,
from faculty,
maybe.
though. I haven't. So, I've talked to instructors from MICA, because I teach art, and so these are art instructors. Some of them teach at HCC also. And when the union was formed, their benefits improved. And they're quite happy.
Yeah.
And they get step increases now in their salary without even knowing that they got them until they found out. Like, the administration says, by the way. And they're like, wow.
And do you think the students' conditions improved correspondingly?
Sure.
Yeah.
Just the anxiety that one has about, let me put it a different way. If you knew that you were going to be teaching this course, and you're going to be teaching it again in the spring, or the summer, or the fall, the ability to put creative thinking into that course that improves the student's learning is going to be there. If you're worried that you're not going to get that course and you might have to teach in another college, a different course that you don't know yet, that anxiety, you don't walk into the classroom with the same kind of enthusiasm, strength, and engagement. And if you don't feel connected to the college in a way that you're appreciated and empowered, then it's hard to give that extra energy to the student, to the college as a whole.
Right. Cool. Yeah, I think that's probably a good point to stop, unless we have anything else you wanted to add. Cool.